Today we have to cover the second part and the last part of the lecture series before we begin our syllabus. And the focus again is on early modern developments, what and how these things came about. This actually creates a background of French Revolution, Enlightenment, everything. And today's lecture is perhaps more important from the conceptual basis. That is one. The second thing is actually there is something called as, have you seen that Game of Thrones? So actually, if you look at history of Europe in this centuries, 15, 16, 17, from the political side, it is a Game of Thrones. Highly evolved Game of Thrones with politics between different monarchs and their wars and their rivalries and competitions and killings within families, outside families. But we don't need to do that at all. उसमें जाना ही नहीं है. So we are saved because one thing I have found in European history कि सबके नाम सेम ही रहते हैं. जेम्स 1, जेम्स 2, जेम्स 3, जेम्स 4, जेम्स 5. इवन इन द केस ऑफ पोप के नंबर 8-8-9 तक गए हुए हैं, है ना. तो ये बात है. सो वी डोंट हैव टू स्टडी दिस पॉलिटिकल हिस्ट्री एट ऑल. दैट इज अ गुड थिंग. वी हैव टू फोकस ऑन द conceptual side of it. So what we shall do, let me open my notes over here, is cover remaining things since yesterday. We'll start with the most important, that is Reformation. Reformation is the thing where you see the ideas beginning of modern state. We'll see ideas beginning of change, of shift from religious basis to secular basis when it comes to the relationship between various states. अब ये बताना बड़ा आसान है, ये सब हो रहा है, but wait just a moment, my laptop is stuck for some reason. Oh, touch screen is not working. Anyway, so we'll begin with Reformation movement. Reformation is something that connects the beginning, the Renaissance, with what comes afterwards, that is Enlightenment. So intellectual angle se we have Renaissance, then Reformation, and then Enlightenment. People very much connect to it. When I used to go to church for a few months, every Sunday I used to go to mass, and at that time we used to have Bible study groups, and I was new to Bible. So उस केस में, and there were lots of Chinese people there who had no idea of Bible. All of them were getting Christianized. I was with a friend of me from Pakistan, Nasir Bilal. तो खाना अच्छा मिलता था. तो after some mass we used to go for Bible study group. एक एक पैराबल, क्रिश्चियन पैराबल्स लेके बात करते थे. So there I befriended a few people, and I realized everybody was consciously very much aware of Christian history. They might not know political history, they might not know economic history, but they very well knew when they migrated to US. Was it during Reformation? Was it after Reformation? Which part of Reformation? How their church came into being? उनको ग्रेट अमेरिकन के पहले क्या हुआ था? Puritanical, what was about the Puritanical movement? And although the entire community there was extremely aware of European history from the religious viewpoint, and the center point of it in debates always used to go back to Reformation, Reformation, Reformation. So that is a very basic idea. But for us, Reformation per se is not important. What kind of reform that were brought within the Christianity, within the Catholic Church, that is not important to us. We are more important into its political consequences. That is our understanding. Now, before we move ahead, I have to give you one cautionary note. And that note is that it's a chicken and egg problem now. We have Reformation, we have commercial revolution, we have rise of nation states. अब आप मुझे पूछोगे कि भाई पहले क्या हुआ, किसके वजह से क्या हुआ, consequence. We have scientific revolution happening at the same time. What led to what is the cause and what is the consequences? I am clueless because all the things are happening almost quasi simultaneously, and all of them have bearing on each other. तो if they don't ask you question on this part, तो आप कोई प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है. बट अगर वो पूछते सवाल, तो इफ अ क्वेश्चन इज ऑन लेट अस से रिफॉर्मेशन, इन द कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस यू विल राइट राइज ऑफ नेशन स्टेट। इट्स राइज ऑफ नेशन स्टेट का सवाल है कौन रिफॉर्मेशन। तो आपको घुमा फिरा के यही 5-6 चीजें हैं, एक के ऊपर पूछो तो बाकी 4 कॉन्सिक्वेंस। यू कैन पिक अप एनी कॉज एंड देन कनेक्ट टू एनी कॉन्सिक्वेंस, क्योंकि ये सारा कुछ साइमल्टेनियसली हो रहा है। ठीक है, सो लेट अस स्टार्ट विद रिफॉर्मेशन। नाउ द प्रोटेस्टेंट मूवमेंट was initiated by Martin Luther, who was a local priest of the Church of Wittenberg. In 1517, on the wall of the church, he nailed 95 theses to be answered by the Pope. So we have a person called Martin Luther. Do not confuse him with Martin Luther King. He's in 20th century, 1960s वगैरह, ठीक है। This person, he was actually himself a priest. He's a local priest, and then he has lot of frustration about the behavior of church in certain manner, the corruption, the evil of the church and all those things. So he put the questions to the Pope. उसने दीवार पे, दरवाजे पे रादर कील ठोक के, तो बड़ा फेमस फोटो भी है उसका, and asked 95 questions. Now this is actually a kind of blasphemy, kind of heresy. To ask such questions to Pope is not tolerable. उसको सजाए मौत तय थी. He would have been pilloried and then killed. But what happened is something else altogether. It's not that he was the first person to be dissatisfied. He took the step, he took the initiative, he protested against the church, so Protestant movement, and then he was not killed. But before that, what was he protested about? He protested against the authority of the church known as Protestant movement. He challenged the whole church system itself. Now, we have seen in our yesterday's lecture that in the ancient era, the church was quite simple, less ritualistic, and in the medieval time it became much more ritualistic. And the reason was two thinkers, Peter Lombard and Thomas Aquinas. Now he is asking questions against those thinkers only. He tried to bring Christians close to the earlier saints in the pre-medieval time, that is Saint Paul and Saint Augustine. जब हम medieval देखते हैं उल्टा देखा था, अब दोबारा इस तरफ चल रहा है. And he emphasized individuals' direct relationship with God and authority of Scripture over authority of the Pope. So this is a very simple fundamental idea, even in the case of socio-religious reform movements in India. कि भाई मूर्ति पूजा क्यों? We don't want a priest craft in between. हम खुद अपनी किताब पढ़ेंगे, हम खुद अपना मतलब लगाएंगे. No, the Bible is written in Latin. People don't understand that. People have their own local languages. So first of all, you have to start translating the Bible in local language, German and French, etc. And then you have to make the Bible accessible to people. That will happen with the help of Gutenberg printing press. And now people can read their own. अच्छा, ये पंडा तो कुछ और ही बोल रहा था, इसमें कुछ और ही लिखा है. So people now they want to read their own Bible. They want to use their own understanding of Bible. They should be able to read in the first place. So the fundamental idea, one of the ideas or consequences of Protestantism was literacy rate. अपना अपना किताब खुद पढ़ो. Don't write, because the original language is not even Latin. It's Koine Greek. अब कोने ग्रीक तो कब खत्म हो गई है. सो उसी लैंग्वेज में उस किताब का मतलब होता है, दैट हैज नो मतलब ऐसे कुछ है नहीं. इट कैन बी ट्रांसलेटेड इन एनी लैंग्वेज. यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड मेक मीनिंग बाय योर सेल्फ. यू शुड रिमेन डिपेंडेंट ऑन प्रीस्टली क्लास टू मेक द मीनिंग. दे विल डिराइव द मीनिंग एज पर देयर रिक्वायरमेंट एंड नॉट योर रिक्वायरमेंट. वो अपना फायदा देखेंगे. एंड दे वुड कम विथ लॉट ऑफ थियरीज ऑफ हाउ टू इंटरप्रेट सर्टन प्रोज. उसमें नहीं जानना है. अपना देखो, सिंपल किताब खुद पढ़ो, खुद जानो. जो आपको सही लगे सही है, नहीं लगे नहीं है. तो यू हैव टू टेक कंट्रोल बैक इनटू योर ओन हैंड ऑफ द रिलीजन. इट इज व्हाट बुद्धा सेड, अत्त दीप भव, बी योर ओन लाइट. So that was his idea. And church, which had been dominating the meaning, dominating the religion, उसने कहा चर्च क्यों चाहिए आपको? यूनिवर्सल चर्च is actually the problem, not the solution. We will decide. We will form our own churches, which will not be directed from Rome. So we have something called as ecclesiastical polity. Even today, you will see how the churches are organized. So you have 3 types of churches. We have Roman Catholic Church, where you have universal angle, where you have one pope in entire world, and then entire world is divided into archbishops, bishops, etc. So पूरी दुनिया में उनके अपने अपने चलते रहते हैं. So it is one single church organized from, even in India recently there was issue in Kerala, if you have read a newspaper. Why? Because the Pope and his people are saying something else in Vatican, and the priest in Kerala is saying something else. उन्होंने priest को हटा दिया. तो नहीं काम करेगा. Mass is closed for some time because the local church is saying that we want to conduct mass in certain way, कि mass में हमें यहाँ जाके देख के बोलना है कि यहाँ देख के बोलना है. That was the only issue, and Vatican and Kerala is having tough fight over that because Vatican controls the church, not Kerala priest, because it is a Roman Catholic church. If you go to Protestant church, you don't have one single universal church. Now what this Martin Luther person will start is not only him starting, we have then very soon many other thinkers coming up who want to see reform in church, and they start their own church. Like Luther starting his church, it is Lutheran. You have Calvin starting his own sect, Calvinists. So you have even in England coming up Protestant religion, we call it Anglican church. So we have, based on certain region, certain backup, certain leader, certain doctrinal issue, we have various Protestant churches. So you don't have one single Protestantism. We have Protestantisms, each of it having its own idea. So I will call it P1, P2, P3, P4, and in that ecclesiastical polity, उनका अपना global network होगा हर एक का, and they are fine with that. They don't claim universality. बोलो हम एक sect की तरह काम करें. If you go to Nagaland, we have the domination of whom? Pentecostals, American Baptists. So वही चलता है. The point is that Pentecostal American Baptists would keep rivaling against each other all the time. So you have a competition between them. So we have one Catholic church, we have multiple different types of Protestant churches which emerge out of Reformation. And then we have local parish also. कि one single church, बाकी community जो होगी आसपास की वही उसको मैनेज करेगी, चंदा इकट्ठा करके अपना अपना गांव का मंदिर है वो. So we have three different types of ecclesiastical political structures of managing church system. So what we have right now in this chapter is movement from here to here. So Catholics would continue, but various Protestant sects would emerge. Now each sect has one leader, one doctrine, and then one, sometimes in the beginning at least, geographical context. England would have English church and like that. So okay, now he emphasized on the individual direct relationship with the God and authority of scripture over the authority of Pope. He would have been killed, but he was not killed for primarily two reasons. One reason is that lots of German nobility which was there, which is now getting exposed to all these things. The feudalism is gradually now dying and they want control over land and property. But who controls lots of land? Church. So they say कि अब मौका मिला है. They are interested in land grabbing, and जैसे ही चर्च अगर वीकन होता है जमीन हथिया लेंगे. अब लैंड माफिया तो हमारे यहाँ भी होते हैं बहुत सारे, राइट? सो दे सी कि लेट अस सपोर्ट हिम. If public are backing him, we should back him up so that we can get land from church, then we will be rich. So one reason is that local German nobility stands behind him and not behind Roman church. ये पहली बार हुआ 1000 साल में. For previous 1000 years, it had never occurred in the Middle Ages. The second thing we see at the same time is that Holy Roman Empire, which is now based in Germany, is actually fighting a war with France at that time. तो क्योंकि राजा कहीं और लगा हुआ है, local nobility support कर रही है, so this movement started to become successful. So there were a lot of political factors as well behind making it successful. नहीं काम कर. So next point. Later he was followed up by other reformers like Calvin in France, Zwingli in Switzerland, etc., which led to the rejection of teaching and practices of Catholic Church and establishment of Protestant denominations. So we call them denominations, various denominations, sect, Lutheran, Calvinist, Anglican, Puritans, Baptist, Methodist, and whatnot, Huguenot, etc. Lot of them come up very soon. अब इनकी हर एक की अपनी अपनी हिस्ट्री है, वो हमें नहीं सीखने कोई जरूरत नहीं है. And within this also you have subsects emerging very soon in the next few decades. We don't need to go into those details also, but understand कि हम एक चर्च को नहीं मानते. Now what was the cause behind this? There is obviously a religious factor, and that we have just seen that the church is getting corrupt. The evils of practices have creeped inside. There is no more. जब हम बुद्धिज्म की बात करते हैं, we say the same thing. कि धर्म का आडंबर मचा हुआ है. The old things are getting very ritualistic. The orthopraxy is dominating over orthodoxy, and lots of things are there. So we see the same thing over here. Some religious practices are either corrupt or evil. उसमें the first thing is the church and state synergy. Medieval Catholic Church introduced mandatory membership and called it as Universal Christian Society. We have seen that already. Everybody, that's the very idea of Catholicism, universal. It was a synergy of both church and state. In principle, ruled the two powers, the Pope and the Holy Roman Empire. But now, other people, other feudal lords, some of them which are very powerful, want the share in power. वो तभी कर पाएंगे जब वो चर्च का इन्फ्लुएंस कम करेंगे. Otherwise, church will continue getting influential in all parts of Europe. Second is the clergy. Clergy enjoyed a special position as an intermediary. What is intermediary? It believes in the intercession. Ki you as an individual cannot access the God directly. If you want to accept the God, if you want to access the kingdom of heaven, we are the one in between. हम बीच का रास्ता है, हमारे तरफे, हमारे मार्फत, हमारे थ्रू God talks to you. So when we speak to you, God is speaking to you. So the church is God for you. So you cannot bypass the church. These people are questioning church. हमें चाहिए क्यों बीच में? चर्च को ही हटा दो, मैं और मेरा भगवान. That is the main context, because even Jesus Christ did not form the church. Church was established about a few decades after the Christ was gone. Okay. And then the medievalists started. They say कि if you want to have a salvation, मुक्ति अगर चाहिए आपको, you have to become good Christian, you have to follow good deeds, and we will tell you what are those good. जैसे हमें दान धर्म करो, right? So those things are there. Now many evils which are actually कुछ रह गया इसमें, to organize, we have seen that necessary to organize 7 sacraments for salvation, which could be presided over by clergy only. The संस्कारों की बात हमने कल करी थी. Many evils and irrelevant rituals had become an integral part of the medieval church system. Even the priests and cardinals, they used to take the oath that we will not marry, and they used to have secret marriages and have illegitimate children. अब ये दोगलापन है भाई. If you are a good pope or good Christian, a good priest, then you should follow what you say. No, lots of such scandals came. Everybody knew. गांव में एक ही priest है, पता है इसकी secret wife वहाँ बैठी है, इसके 4 बच्चे हैं. But then in the church he would come and give some speech. So he doesn't have a moral authority. It's a corruption. So much so, not only the cardinals and priests, even the Pope. The Pope innocent, lots of Pope. There is a Wikipedia article I was looking at yesterday. Sexually active popes. अब कौन से उनकी पूरी लिस्ट है वहाँ पे. ये क्या बात. Even the Pope Innocent at that time was Innocent VIII was Pope at that time. So my teacher used to say Pope Innocent was not so innocent. So all those things. So point is, it's a corruption. It's not a very virtue-based idea going on. So people are fed up against it. Not only that, you have sale of indulgences, and it is the ultimate type of corruption. What is indulgence? Do you know indulgence? जानते हो आप? नहीं जानते? हाँ या ना कुछ तो बोलो, बताइए. It's not the English word indulgence. It's a very specific Christian concept of indulgence. It means mukti patra. You know, in churches you have confession. थोड़ा सा केबिन होता है, you go and confess. So confession का next level चला गया indulgences, where if you have done some paap, if you have done some sin, then you will definitely go into purgatory. मतलब नरक में पक्का जाओगे, रव नरक में जाओगे. But if you buy मुक्ति पत्र, if you give us money, we will give you a letter कि आपके से पाप से मुक्तता हुई है. तो चर्च आपको लेटर देगा, आप चर्च को पैसे दीजिए. So church is selling those indulgences to expiate you of the sins that you are doing. And what is it doing with the money? It is getting rich. Not only that, the padri, the father, the clergy, which would have done lots of good deeds, meritorious works, would have a lot of punya in his bank balance. So he can sell that punya to somebody else. तो पुण्य और पाप को खरीदना बेचना चल रहा है. Church can buy your पाप and then you are free of पाप. Or if some individual padri has lot of punya, he can sell you some punya and get some money. Ultimately, it's a game of money. It's ultimate level of corruption, sale of indulgences, mukti patra. And in the case of Germany especially, where Martin Luther was there, this thing reached its excess amount of corruption. So people were fed up कि भाई आप धर्म की बात कर ही नहीं रहे हो. So Protestant leaders stood up against these religious evils, but the target of the Protestant movement was not these religious evils, but the medieval church system itself. वो बस चर्च के अंदर रिफॉर्म की बात नहीं कर रहे, वो चर्च को ही हटाने की कोशिश कर रहे. And that is very ambitious goal. If we don't follow this church, we'll find our own church. But you know, how do we know that? Because the church itself was aware of these evils, and church was trying earnestly to reform itself by that time, and the efforts started by church itself to reform itself is called as counter reformation. So दो तरह के अब लोग आ गए. On one side people want to attack church and bypass church because it has evils, and on the other side where some people inside the church who are good meaning people who want to reform the church and then make it better. That thing is called as counter reformation. And this counter reformation actually was a response by the Catholic Church itself to the Protestant Reformation. But if you go in detail, you come to know it started before Martin Luther nailing those 95 theses on the doors of the church. मतलब चर्च खुद ही अपने आप से was getting aware, had already started to change. So actually it started a little bit before the beginning of Protestant movement as a result of Renaissance consciousness and scientific ideas. So even the people within church were getting aware that this is not good, we need to reform. They had started the reform. And when this Protestant movement started, the urgency increased further. And it became more intense on the side of church also khud ko sudhare. And how do we know that? For example, in Council of Trent, it sought to clarify Catholic doctrine and reform the church practices, reaffirm the Catholic Church's teachings, the authority of Pope and the importance of good works in salvation. So they said कि हमारा जो डॉक्ट्रिन है उसको थोड़ा हम थोड़ा सा रिफाइन करते हैं, इम्प्रूव करते हैं, उसकी अच्छी बातों आपको बताते हैं. And then establishment of a new religious order called Jesuits. इंडिया में आपके पास फॉर एग्जांपल फ्रांसिस जेवियर, डॉन बॉस्को, ये सारे अलग अलग स्कूल्स जो है which are actually Jesuit people. Xavier or Javier, as we call it Spanish, he was one of the first Jesuit. This order of priests like Dashnami sect created by Shankaracharya, it was created by Pope कि भाई ये आजन्म शादी नहीं करेंगे, दुनिया भर में जाएंगे और प्रसार करेंगे क्रिश्चियनिटी के गुड वैल्यूज का. To spread, because now within Europe you see the problem is happening and the world is getting opened up through the Spanish and Portuguese people for colonization. तो वहाँ Christian भी तो हो. We have these Jesuits coming up to spread Catholicism throughout the world, and then it brought out a good side of church. So you have these reforms happening. So since religious reform had already begun, then why need to have Protestant movement? The critics believe that it was because the political and social factors were also active behind it and not only religious factors. So simple. Church reform करी रहा है. ये देखो how it is happening. In our history, in ancient India, we have Vedic religion early, then later. By the time you go to later Vedic era, it becomes ritualistic, sacrifices costly and elaborate and all those things, unsatisfying for people. So you have a reform movement happening within Vedic religion itself, and that is Upanishads. So Upanishads don't focus on this Karma Kand, they go towards Jnana Kand. So already the reform has started. अगर शुरू हो ही चुका है, उसी दिशा में जा रहा है, then why do we separately need Buddhism? There was no need. उसी दिशा में गाड़ी जा ही रही थी. But Buddhism still came not only because of religious angle, because of the social and political reasons. It is not only religious. So you have the mercantile class, we have the Kshatriya class, they have the status requirement and all those things coming up. The peasant class having ahimsa and all. So Buddhism becomes more important. So similarly, if you can call here counter reformation as Upanishads, then the reformation would become Buddhism, and then it will attack on the own religion. It's a very broad analytical connection. It's not very accurate to be. There is no analogy between Upanishad and counter reformation as such, but the process wahi ho gayi. Behind Buddhism is standing the socio-economic political system and not only religious. Same thing is over here. So what are the other reasons which are not purely doctrinal, not satisfaction and dissatisfaction with the church system itself? बाकी पीछे शक्तियां कौन सी खड़ी है मार्टिन लूथर के या बाकी लोगों के, हमें वो भी देखना चाहिए. Then you come to political factor. The ambitious rulers of Europe used the Protestant movement to establish a national monarchy in their concerned country. So, as I said, there was a question of dual authority. Insofar as the universal church existed, national monarchies could not come into existence if in my own region I am not the only one running the government. You have this universal church also, which accepts, for example, tithe. Tithe is the tax. So we have the local feudal law taxing the people. We have church taxing the people. दो authority tax ले रहे हैं. How is it allowed? Who is the sovereign? Right now, Vatican power is sovereign और जहाँ जहाँ की monarchy है वो sovereign, तो clash होना ही. It's a dual government. एक म्याद दो तलवार नहीं हो सकता. Right? The Protestant movement gave opportunity to ambitious monarchs to assert the authority by making use of upheaval. They could make the local church subordinate to the state and strengthen their national boundary. So these local monarchs thought कि अब हमारा मौका आया है कि हम control लेंगे. And we have example, the most famous, yes, tax imposed by church, TITHE, in the French Revolution. So everything gets connected there gradually. You will see French Revolution will do after, I think, first we'll go to Enlightenment, then we'll go to American Revolution and end the story till Civil War, then we'll go to French Revolution, but everything will get connected. इसको हम जब मैंने पहली बार पढ़ा टीथे टीथे बोल रहा था, वो टीथे है नहीं, पता ही नहीं था कैसे प्रोनाउंस करे, टाइट. Anyway, the very famous story of an English king called Henry the Eighth. We know that. बताइए. Who was his first wife? I had been to Arunachal once, just a moment. In Arunachal, I went to a bishop's house, and he was a Roman Catholic bishop from Kerala, appointed in Arunachal. ईटानगर के उनके चर्च में गए थे, बात कर रहे थे, and he was very angry with all these people on Protestant side. बोले क्या प्रोटेस्टेंट है, अपनी शादी के लिए राजा ने बनाया, उसका मतलब थोड़ी है, स्वार्थी लोग. That was his idea. Because if you look from the Catholic viewpoint, the reason that Anglican Church was created is only because of the interest of one person, the monarch, who wanted to have a divorce. The monarch was married to a woman, her name was Lady Catherine, but he fell in love with Anne Boleyn. सीरीज देखी होगी आपने. अच्छा ये पढ़ा है, वह सीरीज भी अच्छी है, वो देखना. बताइए, ये पूरी कहानी थोड़ी सी डाइवोर्स वाली. हाउ द एंग्लिकन चर्च इज एस्टैब्लिश अल्टीमेटली, दैट इज माय क्वेश्चन. Because in Catholicism, divorce is not allowed, except in certain cases, adultery and not having a child, all those. Hmm. 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 Acha, so you got more focused towards the personal story. I'll come back to the different aspect of it. एक थोड़ा सा और important part of मिस करती है इसमें. हाँ, Clement 7 या 8. So what was that role? So point is that the Henry the Eighth is married to Catherine, and then he falls in love with Anne Boleyn. Now he wants to get divorce, and he has actually a legitimate ground of divorce that he doesn't have a child. He writes a letter because divorce will be granted only by the Pope. Pope is the highest authority. So he writes to his main person in England, जो कि वहाँ बिशप होगा, आर्च बिशप होगा, and through that he approaches the Pope ultimately कि divorce चाहिए. The Pope जब later देखता है, he understands very well the grounds are there, legally the divorce should have been granted. थोड़ा सा उल्टा है, but yes, yes, but it's the person who can carry the throne. But the problem is that Pope के हाथ भी बंधे हुए थे. The Pope was tied in the political issue because at that time we had the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. The Holy Roman Empire is the one who is protecting the church since Charlemagne. तो होली रोमन एम्परर की बहन थी कैथरीन, सो उसको डिवोर्स कैसे दिलाए वो? तो पोप के हाथ बंधे हुए थे. तो पोप वाज नॉट, तो पोप ने क्या किया? पॉकेट वेटो, लेटर रखा जेब में, राइट. ही डिड नॉट रिस्पॉन्ड बिकॉज ही कुड नॉट रिस्पॉन्ड. क्या बोलता? तो फिर धीरे 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 हेनरी द एट गॉट एंग्री एंड देन ही अल्टीमेटली सेड नथिंग डूइंग, मैं नहीं मानता, मैं नहीं जानता, दीपो जिसका महल्ला तुम ही है जल. तो उसने कहा कि नहीं, दिस विल नॉट गो, आई विल फॉर्म माई ओन चर्च एंड माई ओन चर्च विल ग्रांट मी डाइवोर्स. दैट इज हाउ यू हैव द आइडिया ऑफ एंग्लिकन चर्च बिगिनिंग. सो वी हैव अ नेशनल चर्च in England called Anglican Church. So even today, English people are technically, English government technically is not secular. It's a religious government. You have the Canterbury person coming and all those things are going on even every time we have a new prime minister and new king or queen, etc. So this thing led to the formation of Anglican Church, which is one of the Protestant churches. The point is not कि शादी करनी थी, शादी नहीं करनी थी, प्यार में पड़ा था. That is how the Catholic priest in front of me said कि भाई देखो, खुद के फैमिली के लिए चर्च को तोड़ दिया. बट द रियल इशू इज नॉट दैट. रियल इशू इज दैट हु विल हैव द सोवरेन अथॉरिटी इन योर टेरिटरी. व्हाई शुड इवन द किंग हैव टू टेक द परमिशन टू फॉलो द लोकल थिंग्स फ्रॉम वेटिकन? कौन आ गए बाहर के? सो द फीलिंग ऑफ लोकैलिटी, फीलिंग ऑफ हैविंग योर टेरिटोरियल आइडेंटिटी इज नाउ इमर्जिंग. एंड हु इज whosoever is extra territorial, आपके बाउंड्री के बाहर अगर कोई अथॉरिटी है, रिलीजियस क्यों ना हो, if that is interfering within my territory, that is infringement of my sovereignty. Now you take the question of Khilafat movement. It was same question. Khalifa is the head of Muslims, Sunni Muslims, not Shia Muslims, Sunni Muslims sitting in Arabia or Turkey at that time. और दैट इशू इज एक्स्ट्रा टेरिटोरियल इशू. इंडिया के सब कॉन्टिनेंट के बाउंड्री के बाहर की बात है, उसका हमारा क्या लेना देना? इवन इफ यू आर अ हिंदू और अ मुस्लिम इन इंडिया, यू आर इंडियन. वॉट एवर इज देयर आउटसाइड इंडियन बाउंड्रीज इज नन ऑफ योर कंसर्न. दैट इज द आर्ग्यूमेंट गिवन टू दिस इशू बाय मेनी पीपल हु अपोज्ड गांधी. इट्स द इशू ऑफ एक्स्ट्रा टेरिटोरियलिटी. इट मीन्स यू गिव प्राइमेसी टू जोग्राफिकल टेरिटरी. वॉट एवर इज विद इन योर टेरिटरी, भले कोई भी धर्म का हो, डजेंट मैटर, इट्स यूर. Outside territory, it is the other. So that is the idea how the national boundaries are getting established. It was not so in the medieval time. It was not so in the ancient time. It is now emerging for the first time. Nation state. It's like inseparable important part है Protestant religion. So you go to next aspect, that is the economic aspect. कई बार मतलब ऐसे जोक्स भी, व्हेन यू फॉलो द डिबेट ऑन ब्रेक्सिट, देयर वर लॉट ऑफ कमेंटेटर्स से कि भाई ब्रिटिश हैव द ओल्ड हैबिट ऑफ ब्रेक्सिट. दिस इज आल्सो ब्रेक्सिट. एंग्लिकन चर्च सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम द कैथोलिक चर्च इन अ वे. यस, बिल्कुल. क्या हो रहा है? हाँ हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, आराम. आपके लिए गर्म चाय भी बोल दें, उनको दे देंगे आपको. अच्छा, आई थॉट यू आर सेइंग समथिंग फॉर हिम. Anyway, let's come back. Economic factor. The local church owned the land under the manorial system. We have discussed what manorial system is. With the disintegration of feudalism, the aristocratic class was almost impoverished and thus had its eye on church property and looked for the opportunity to grab it. That is why the German aristocrats, nobility, had supported Martin Luther. Local church was authorized to impose tithe, other taxes, and selling indulgences and earn money. Now, the point is that whatever the money that is earned by the local church through tithe and indulgences and all other things, land ownership, etc., some portion of it, only some portion of it would be kept within your territory and spent on church, but majority of it would be sent to Vatican. It's drain of wealth. कि हमारे देश का पैसा बाहर क्यों जा रहा है? So people, again, you see the same feeling of territoriality emerging. Why our money is getting sent outside our boundaries to some other country? So that also became the main reason. So people were angry with such drain of wealth to Rome. The interest of the newly emerging mercantile class, money lending and profit making are the backbone of commerce, which was considered immoral by the Roman Church. So you see, people wanted to get into all this money lending, business transactions. It is the era of commercial revolution, and the value system of commercial revolution is not backed by Catholic Church. If you see, again, the same tussle happened in the case of Buddhism. We have urbanization, we have new ethos coming up of trade and commerce and equality inequality. They are not backed up by the old religion of the nomadic era, that is Vedic religion. तो religion पुरानी है, society economy नई है, clash होना है. Same thing happened. Catholic Church is actually a structure that evolved for feudal era. Now the feudal era is going away. You have the commercial era coming up, and the value system of Catholic Church is not useful here. You need to have a new value system. वो कहाँ से आएगी? Protestant religion. ठीक है? So we have Max Weber writing a book, Protestant Ethics and Spirit of Capitalism. People in sociology and anthropology study that in detail. We don't need to go. But his idea is that capitalism could emerge because of the Protestant values primarily. जैसे कि मैंने आपको एक बात बताई, you have to work for yourself. Profit making should not be despised. It is a good thing. पैसे कमाओ, उसमें पाप पुण्य की बात कहाँ पे आती है? But don't spend on luxuries. You yourself remain very fastidious. आप अपना खर्चा मत करो, आप दान धर्म करो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, बट पैसे कमाओ. Don't spend money on useless luxuries. Be spendthrift, but earn lot of money. That is one thing. Secondly, you have to, for example, this banking and money lending is allowed. Thirdly, the very basic thing as reading a Bible. Because you have to read your own Bible, you can't trust on the priest and church for that. It means you have to be literate, and spirit of literacy is very much important for such increasing trade and commerce. So lots of value system that Protestantism generated. For example, they have to work hard for 6 days and rest on 7 days. If you go by the ritualistic angle, actually personal level पे Protestantism are sometimes more orthodox than Catholic. लेकिन चलो अलग बात हो गई. But the point is that the value system created by Protestantism helped a lot in creating the capitalistic value system. And this goes exactly against what Marx would say. Marx ने क्या कहा होगा? Economy से religion, substructure, superstructure. Weber is saying उल्टा. Religion से economy change हो रही. So change of direction of change is exact opposite as per Weber. Anyway, we come to the consequences. We don't need to go into a lot of details here. The consequences of Reformation. The first thing is Reformation movement played a significant role in the rise of modern West by it created a rift between the two important medieval institutions, Universal Church System and Holy Roman Empire. We have seen, because Holy Roman Empire was samay was, and people in the empire were backing the Protestant movement. Through this way, it paved a way for the emergence of nation state. It gave a major boost to capitalism by providing legitimacy to the money lending and profit making. So simple things. So all these things are connected. When we discuss this thing, we'll say कि उसका consequence ये रहा होगा उल्टा, chicken and egg problem. Okay, idea is clear. Then you go to next and much more important thing, commercial revolution. Now here certain concepts are involved, and it is actually very much connected to what India started feeling also. But we don't look at the political history of colonization also. I will just hint at it at appropriate points. The commercial revolution played a major role in the economic transformation of Europe. That is how the Europe could come out of feudalism. Now what is the basic idea of feudalism? You have agriculture being important and not trade. You don't have surplus much because you don't have money. You barter. You don't go to the market. Market is not important. So local trade hai, but only local, not global. Money system is not much there. Lot of barter. Focus on agriculture and exchange. Simple. And not producing surplus for profit making. So that was the idea. But gradually you see the three factors which could have given a serious jolt to the status quoism in Europe and prepared the way for change in progress. One by one हमको देखेंगे. In the अच्छा ये लाइन मुझे नीचे डालनी थी, गलती से ऊपर आ गई. Anyway, the 16th century marked a major event in the history of Europe. and significant changes in trade and commerce. So let us look at first the elements of commercial revolution, and then again we look at causes and consequences in our regular way. The first thing, what is commercial revolution? Widespread and growing influence of the market. We don't have that earlier. We have market becoming the point of exchange. In the feudal system, you don't have global market. Secondly, increase in inter-regional trade, end of localism and surge of overseas trade. We have Portuguese, we have Spanish people going across the world and creating empires in Latin America, in Asia, etc. And the global trade is becoming important. No more अपना गाँव अपनी माटी. अब बात देश की करोगे, दुनिया की करोगे. You want to consume lots of luxuries. You are producing not for local consumption, producing for global market. So those things become prominent. Then creation of money economy. By the end of 13th century, coins like Venetian ducat and Lawrence Lauren had gained acceptance in Italy and in the international market of Northern Europe gradually. So the very idea कि भाई feudalism में exchange होता है, money economy, we study all that in India also. In the early medieval, the Marxist historian who believe that there is feudal system in India, they say there is no money economy, there is monetary anemia. Right? पढ़ते हैं. Same thing is here. अभी तक हो गया आपका monetary anemia कि नहीं हुआ? नहीं हुआ. हो जाएगा क्लास में. विशाल सर will take it. So we have monetary anemia and arguments against it कि सच में anemia था या नहीं था. So let me give you some idea which is relevant over here. There are 4 or 5 factors. One is political decentralization. Second is focus on agriculture becoming more important, trade and commerce coming down. The third thing is that you have no money economy, rather focus on barter. Fourth thing, you have de-urbanization, because cities require trade, cities require cash, cities require central governments. When you don't have trade and cash, you can't have cities. Cities decline and there is ruralization. And then we have hierarchy in agrarian setup, lord, baron, all those things, serf. So when you say that you want to dismantle feudal system, we talk about all these things getting dismantled. So when in the early medieval or Rajput era, if some people believe that there is feudal system and Delhi Sultanate is destroying that, it is creating political centralization. It is increasing the importance of trade and commerce by bringing new technology, by bringing lots of government things. Then it is saying कि भाई we will forcefully include the money in, for example, tax collection will happen only through money, cash tax collection and not in kind. So forced monetization takes place. Then you have to go for cities, the iktas becoming new centers, military towns and all those things. And then you have hierarchy in agriculture that gets de-established. There is no more focus on land grants and all those things. So these are the things of medieval which get dismantled, and then you go to Sultanate era, early medieval to medieval in India. So ये एक पुरानी concept है. This is all old idea of feudalistic. Now most of these things are not agreeable to historians. We don't believe, not all of us, but many of us don't believe. If you go to DU today or JNU today, they will not teach you feudalism as the fact. It was taught 20 years ago. Now feudalism के आगे वाली बात आती है, integrative school, and that gets more acceptance. Even Upinder Singh doesn't believe that there was Indian feudalism, not at all. And she is the very main, she's a very big teacher nowadays in Ashoka University. So lots of people who teach ancient India don't believe in that. They have come from the descent of either, if you're a historian, you believe in either DC Sarkar or B. Chattopadhyay, or if you are an epigraphist or an archaeologist, you believe in Dilip Chakrabarti. ये सब उनके खिलाफ थे feudal systems के, क्योंकि मार्क्सिस्ट डिबेट के आगे समय जा चुका है. But in the case of Europe, at least, we have to agree there are some elements of feudalism. They are getting destroyed one by one. So when you have some money, some coinage coming back into this system, it means the money system is coming up, barter is going away, feudalism is getting destroyed. Likewise, changes in the mode of production. The guild system, which controlled the quality and quantity and people involved in the mode of production, now it is getting gradually replaced by putting out system or the domestic system. होता क्या है? that there is a global trade rising, markets are getting connected, there is a demand for certain commodities. So if I'm a merchant, I want to sell woolen garments in world market. I would come to you. You are a craftsman, producer, but you would say I can't produce for you because मेरा कोटा इतना ही डिसाइड किया हुआ है मेरे गिल्ड ने. You go to the गिल्ड ने कहेगा कि नहीं, हमारा इतना ही कोटा है, ऐसे ही है, हम ऐसे ही देंगे, लेना है तो लो वरना भाड़ में जाओ. Now merchant is getting angry. भाई ऐसे कैसे काम चलेगा? So what a merchant would do? Because there is demand in the market, he wants to earn money. He would bypass the guild which is based in city. He would go to village directly जहाँ से guild procure करता है wool. एंड गांव में जाके बोलेगा अच्छा तुम उनको गिल्ड को बेच रहे हो, तुम मुझे बेचो, ये पहले एडवांस ले लो. तो मर्चेंट वुड गिव एडवांस. दादनी की बात करते हैं हम इंडिया में 18th सेंचुरी में, दादनी क्लासिक के आसपास वही बात चल रही है, पुटिंग आउट सिस्टम. तो मर्चेंट वुड गिव एडवांस टू द प्रोड्यूसर, प्राइमरी प्रोड्यूसर, कि भाई तुम बनाओ, आई विल सेल इट. दैट इज बाईपास द गिल्ड. गिल्ड ग्रेजुअली स्टार्ट गेटिंग dissolved. Guild monopoly gets over. So guild is an very much in the European context, not in Indian context, guild is an idea of feudalism. अब वो खत्म हो रहा है, समझ में आ रहा है. And increased economic specialization, development of new types of business organization. यहाँ पे ये chartered companies, joint stock company. No, in 1600 what is formed? East India Company. So this East India Company या फिर ब्रिटिश एंड फ्रेंच ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी, डैनिश कंपनी, डच कंपनी, ऑल दिस थिंग्स आर चार्टर्ड. दे गेट द चार्टर बाय द स्टेट दैट यू कैन गो, यू हैव मोनोपोली, एंड देन दे रेज कैपिटल फ्रॉम जॉइंट स्टॉक. डच ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी वॉज द फर्स्ट कंपनी विच स्टार्टेड जॉइंट स्टॉक. एम्स्टरडैम का बाउर्स वॉज द फर्स्ट बाउर्स. एंड देन वेरी सुन यू हैव इन British also, the capital collection is not only through private joint stock but the public joint stock. Public shares आ जाते हैं इंग्लैंड में भी. Then you have state banks. Nation forms their own state banks to support and finance many activities. Stock market coming up, futures market coming up. So all these things, and acceptance of the principle of mercantilism. हम उसकी बात थोड़ी देर में करेंगे. So all these things collectively, from global trade and then money economy, then system of production, system of distribution, all these things are affected by commercial revolution, and every single damn thing is last brick in the wall to bury feudalism. अब ये क्यों होता है? Why all these things start coming up? So what are the causes? The very first cause is crusade. So crusade opened new routes between Europe and West Asia, thus paving the way for greater commercial activity and gave boost to economy. We have seen crusades yesterday. The wars, religious wars. Crusade is a word that comes from the Christian side. What is the word that would come from the Muslim side? Jihad, right? So that was the word that was used at that time. So in the feudal era, as I said, the global trade is limited. Now all these Europeans are coming to East. They are getting exposed to lots of Eastern commodities, not only ideas. Ideas we have seen in the Reformation, ये पहले रहने सा. But now they are getting exposed to Eastern commodities. उनकी लत लग जाती है, हमें चाहिए. अब चाहिए तो फिर कैसे मिलेगा? Then you start having trade also. So the cash nexus gets entrenched gradually because of the connections which were opened up by crusades. Then we have factors of geography. And again, this thing is very simple. We have seen that multiple times. Fall of Constantinople led to era of sea voyages and geographical discoveries. So you have to understand that Rome was for a long time the seat of power in the Roman Empire. When the Roman Empire bifurcated in around 400-500 CE, we have two Eastern and Western Roman Empire. अब इसमें देखो इंटरेस्टिंग बात कैसे आती है. Eastern Roman Empire, called Byzantine Empire, continued to exist for a long time as a powerful entity. But Western Roman Empire, which controlled entire Western Europe, very much dissolved afterwards. So decline of Western Roman Empire in 400-500 CE, and by 800 CE, formation of, as we have seen, formation of Holy Roman Empire. That is the beginning of feudalism. So decline of Western Roman Empire is the beginning of feudalism. 800-500 के आसपास. अब उसके भी 1000 साल हो गए, 900 साल हो गए. Now we come to 16th century. You have decline of Eastern Roman Empire. Why? Because of the rise of Ottoman Turks who capture the Constantinople. And decline of Eastern Roman Empire becomes the cause of the end of feudalization. So decline of West starts the feudalism, decline of East ends the feudalism. अब वो कैसे है? Point is very simple. The point is that Ottoman Turks capture the Constantinople part. They destroy the Eastern Roman Empire. But Constantinople is a nerve center that connects Asia with Europe for trade. Now it is no more in the control of Christians, it is in the control of Muslims. So all the Christian traders who used to pass through Constantinople were under always fear that we might be arrested, captured and converted. So Western European traders stopped using this route. And then Europe का trade कम हो गया. But there was one entity in Europe and that was Italy. Italian cities which are in the eastern part, closer to eastern part, so they were very practical. उन्होंने अपने nexus बना लिया with Ottoman Turks. So Italian people started to import eastern commodities from Ottomans into Italy, and from Italy onwards it used to sell it everywhere in Europe. तो वो बहुत अमीर हो गए. जैसे ही वो अमीर हो गए, they started funding this Renaissance etc., this Medici family and all other things. So Western Europe वाले लोग jealous हो गए कि भाई हमारा क्या? Only Italy is getting rich. We are cut out of the entire trade. This will not do. हमें हमारा trade करना है. So they are the ones who started funding this sea voyages and everything. So it led Western European nations, Spain, Portugal initially, and afterwards Britain and Netherlands etc., to search for alternative trade routes. Technological change also made sea voyages easier. New shipbuilding, advanced navigational instruments, charts and maps, all those things are coming at that time. Then you go to the change in technology in the case of agriculture as well. And it is very interesting in the agriculture technology. You have the decline of feudalism leading to the rise of yeoman class. अब yeoman farmer कौन होता है? He is the one who is छोटा landlord. So he is above the peasant or land laborer and below the feudal lord. In between he is there. And the yeoman class is very much interested in profit making by increasing production and surplus. So he starts investing money, he starts investing in technology, he starts investing into infrastructure and all those things. So they encourage a technological advancement in agriculture and became richer by producing surplus production. Now यहाँ पे ना I have to tell you two things. कैसे ये होता है? In feudal era, in Europe actually land is not very much fertile. So they had a system called feudal era. They had two systems. One system is two-field system. Two-field system माने एक जमीन के दो टुकड़े करने हैं. एक जमीन चलेगी कुछ समय, 2-4 साल, तब तक half of the land will not be used. It will be kept fallow so that it can create some kind of fertility. And when you use it for some years, then you use this land and keep other land fallow for some years so that it will create some fertility. Because of the lack of fertility of the land, only half the land was used every time in this two-field system. If you use the same land year after year, तो आपकी खपत नहीं क्या, प्रोडक्शन बहुत कम होता है, productivity gets reduced a lot. So the efficiency was only 50%. And the second thing is that you have again mens and demens. It's very easy. It means that you have within the two-field system, जो जमीन आप उपज कर रहे हो वहाँ पे some of it will be mens and some of it will be demens. Mens मतलब for the 3 days you work on your own land for your own food as a farmer. So that is called mens. And the other land, demens, you work on the land of the Lord for remaining 3 days. So that वहाँ से जो कुछ निकलेगा Lord लेके चला जाएगा. That is the way you pay for the tax. Because you don't pay in tax actually. Because there is no money economy. You pay in the form of labor. Labor कैसे? 3 दिन यहाँ काम करो, 3 दिन यहाँ काम करो. Simple. That was the old system in feudal era, and there was no much productivity. Now something changed with the rise of human farmer. Firstly, the organization changed from two-field to three-field system. They started to keep 1/3 of the land fallow and 2/3 of the land under cultivation and then rotate it like this. ये one third, ये one third, फिर वो one third. That led to increase in production. And interestingly, you have technology coming up. Why it could happen? Because of technology. They could increase the productivity like iron plowshare, etc. So better seedling machines and all those things where came, some tools improved which led to increased productivity, because of which the two-field system could convert into three-field system. So the efficiency increased by a few percent. बस one third आपको खाली रखनी है. That is one thing. But these two things ultimately created surplus. अब बात आती है मजे की. Now you have for the first time a marketable surplus. करे क्या? Now the feudal lord and the peasant both are dissatisfied with feudal system. ऐसे नहीं कि peasant ने कोई विद्रोह किया है ना. सिस्टम क्या होती थी मेंस डिमेंस की, कि मेंस 3 days अपनी लैंड के लिए एंड देन 3 days गवर्नमेंट मतलब feudal लॉर्ड्स के लैंड के लिए काम करो. तो feudal लॉर्ड यूज्ड टू ऑलवेज थिंक, कोई भी मालिक होते सोचते हैं नौकर मुझे ठग रहा है, तो यहाँ पे आप आके टाइम पास करते हो. यू डोंट वर्क एज एफिशिएंटली एंड एज हार्ड, यू जस्ट सिंग सम सॉन्ग्स, बैठे गपियाते हो, तो हमारी उपज कम होती. बट अपने ज़मीन पे आप बड़ा मेहनत करते हो, तो हम ठगे जा रहे हैं. तो अगर ये हो कि रादर देन यू गिविंग मी लेबर फॉर 3 days ऑन माई लैंड विच इज जस्ट वेस्ट ऑफ टाइम, आई डोंट वॉन्ट योर लेबर, आई वॉन्ट मनी. So you work on your land for 6 days. I don't bother. You have surplus now. The things have changed. Sell that in the market. पैसा मिलेगा. मुझे 3 दिन के बजाय टैक्स ही दे दे भैया. So that in tax I will not be cheated. पैसा मिलेगा पक्का गारंटी है मेरे को. So the feudal lord himself wants to shift towards cash taxation and not means demands feudal system, because he doesn't want to get cheated. On the other hand, from the farmer side also, he is also very much interested in it. Why? Because he says ki, sir, if I put more efforts, I will have more surplus. If I have more surplus, I can earn more money. Tax remains the same. Baki to fayda mera hai. So both feudal lord and peasant now are dissatisfied with this feudal system and they want to move towards commercial system. Markets are getting created. Monetization is happening. Yeoman farmer. So it's not, see, this is not a huge investment. These are small tweaks. It's not a factory and science. वो बात नहीं है. It doesn't require R&D. They're small investments. You need to have that kind of intention and motivation. That's all. वो कब मिलता है? जब मार्केट बनना शुरू होते, पैसा आना शुरू होता है. ठीक है. See, initial investment की बात हम कब करते हैं? When you have capitalism, when you have industrial revolution which requires prior capital accumulation. It is what Marx talks about. Primitive capital accumulation. कहाँ से होता है? Actually the primitive capital accumulation as per Marx also happens because of this. ये सब होगा, उसके बाद कुछ पैसा बनेगा and that money would be invested into industrial gradually. This is before that, not after that. आयरन तो पुराना है, बट देखो बात वहाँ पे ये है ना कि लैंड इज फैलो. दे डोंट यूज गाय एंड बैल, दे यूज घोड़ा. एंड देन you don't have a lot of water available all the time. For many months in the year you have just winter. तो अब टेक्नोलॉजी धीरे आयरन प्लोशर अभी इफेक्टिवली होना शुरू होता है. वो क्या, वो सॉकेट के एक सिस्टम है वहाँ पे, उसके लिए इट बिकम्स वेरी यूजफुल. ठीक है. Was the Reformation movement in Italy? Sudip, it was everywhere, but it started primarily in Germany and that spread in other parts of the world, or not the world, but Europe. Then you come to the emergence of Protestant religious sect. Again, अब वहाँ पे उसका cause ये था, यहाँ पे इसका cause ये है, chicken and egg problem. So Reformation movement led to new liberal religious sect in form in religious Protestant religion, which supported trade and commerce, focus on individual efforts for God and salvation, motivated people to earn more profit. It paved the way for religious harmony and democratic values. These things we have already seen. Then you go to development of banking, insurance, and joint stock companies. Now, since you have money which could be lent as a valid source of business, you have, at least at the level of ideology, approval for it. So हो गया ideological. Now come to the material basis. In the 15th century, in 1490s, 1460s, etc., we have something called Great Bullion Famine. So there is scarcity of gold and silver in the global market. In Indian context also we study that जब दिल्ली सल्तनत डूबती है, and rather this is a time you see that impacting, for example, MBT also. MBT comes a few decades before it, but India also felt great bullion famine. सोना चांदी है नहीं. He starts the experiment with token currency, right? So it is connected to great bullion famine. But anyway, in the Europe what happens, it leads to establishment of banking system. कि भाई fractional banking system में if you have 1 rupee you can create 10 rupees by money lending. अब समझते हो you know fractional banking system? And आपको शायद नहीं पता होगी, आपको शायद पता नहीं होगी. It will be taught in general studies class whenever you do. इकोनॉमी में पढ़ते बेसिक चीज़ होती है. आप 1 रुपया लेके कितना लेंड करते हो, वो लेके फिर आगे कितना लेंड करता है, फिर वापस आपके पैसे आते हैं, वापस देते हो. तो आना देना करके पैसा बढ़ के बढ़ जाता है. सिंपल. But anyway, it led to families like Medici or Fugger family in Germany, etc., and establishment of joint stock companies and insurance companies, and which have sharing of risk and rewarding, all those things. We have beginning of this organizational aspect of commercial thing that is coming up, and examples are our main companies that came and created empires. And role of state. Now in all these things the monarchs are very much interested. They are the ones who are supporting this commercial revolution because they think that by doing this we can earn more money, we can be more powerful. The state is also interested for the first time. And who is the ally of the state in this process? The middle class. यहाँ पे middle class का मतलब है mercantile community. So strong and stable political regime was also favored for the growth of trade and commerce. So we have a kind of joint alignment of interest coming up between the monarchy and middle class. यहाँ पे let me give you some context again. As we have seen, we have one king, and then we have feudal lords, then we have church as well. A king is dependent on feudal lords for both taxation and army. So king is just notional, not very powerful. He is not even that, he is not even completely sovereign because the church, universal church, controls lots of things in his own territory. तो ये दोनों जो है ये पावरफुल होने की वजह से in the feudal lords, feudal system, this king is not powerful. King is very hapless and weakless, a weak person, weak entity. अब हो रही है commercial revolution. You have global trade. You have rise of middle class. So what does the king do? King बोलता है now I have got opportunity. मैं करूँगा इनके साथ, हम दोस्त बनते हैं, दोनों का फायदा है. If I become strong, I can provide you infrastructure, I can provide charter to your company, I can provide you some army, etc. So it will be good for you, trade and commerce. The middle class will thrive and prosper. And अगर middle class इनको support करता है king को, king becomes rich by taxing people, more trade. So if the king has more money, he can create his own army, he can create his own bureaucracy. मतलब he can bypass feudal lords and church completely. So the early medieval era is the era of friendship between middle class and king. Both of them are emerging by destroying the base of power base of feudalism and church. That is the crux. That is the crux. That's all. Reformation, Renaissance, commercial revolution, afterwards we'll see mercantilism. सबका crux simple ये है, इन दोनों का rise हो रहा है, ये दोनों डूब रहे हैं, बस. You see, gradually a point will come, middle class will become even more powerful and assertive. It will say अब मुझे power चाहिए, and then it will say अब मुझे power चाहिए. How it will say that? In the form of enlightenment. अब इन दोनों में झगड़ा शुरू होगा. And the ideas of middle class are ideas of enlightenment which try to limit the power of the king, monarchy, constitutional monarchy. तो राजा घबराएगा, बोला मैंने तो भस्मासुर बनाया है, अब let me go back to my own people. So king will go back to feudal lords and the crisis will start. That will lead to French Revolution. ठीक है, तो ये पूरा उसका context है. But anyway, once there was money and commercialization, the feudal economy could not bear its brunt. These all factors led to commercial revolution and emerged as the grave diggers of static, regional and feudal Europe. So this commercial revolution further supported changes. So consequences में decline of feudalism, rise of capitalism and mercantilism, establishment of nationalist monarchy, genesis of middle class, background for the industrial revolution. So all these things we see anyway one by one. घुमा फिरा के वही बात चल रही है. Then you go to the next point. The specific aspect that emerged in the wake of commercial revolution is mercantilism. Now this mercantilism is an interesting thing. It is little bit different from commercial revolution, so don't confuse the two. They are related, they are connected, but they are not the same. So in the later period, the commercial revolution adopted a new dimension and new principles. It is called as mercantilism. The mercantilist policy, mercantilism, is the term that is used for the first time in 1770s by Adam Smith. Adam Smith. In his very famous book, The Wealth of Nations. In that, he is saying कि भाई ये जो पुरानी thought process थी, वो थी mercantilistic. So he is writing that by the end of the phase of mercantilism, but it was thriving for previous 2 centuries. But what is mercantilism? Commercial revolution is primarily an economic idea. We have seen that. Gradually what happened is that because the king now sees that if he supports commercial revolution and middle class, he can have more power, more money, he can bypass the feudal lords and church. So king actively starts supporting commercial revolution to increase his power as a national monarch. So what does king want? King want tax money. टैक्स कैसे बढ़ेगा? जब ट्रेड बढ़ेगा. तो वो सारे स्टेप्स जो अब राजा ले रहा है. सो कमर्शियल रिवोल्यूशन वाज स्टार्टेड बाय मिडिल क्लास, बट नाउ द किंग इज सेइंग आई विल हाईजैक इट so that I will also benefit out of it. So hijacking of commercial revolution for the benefit of nation state by the king is mercantilism. What is mercantilism? It is both economic and political concept. It's both economic and political. However, commercial revolution was primarily only economic. So let us see that in some detail. In a broad sense, mercantilism was an economic system based on government intervention, and its aim was to bring economic growth in the nation and increase the power of the state. So commercial revolution is economic phenomenon. Mercantilism is both economic and political phenomenon. In commercial revolution, the mercantile community, the middle class, was the backbone. In the mercantilism, the king is now emerging as the main supporter of the change. So it is trying to create a strong state. So it is, what does it mean actually? What does it contain? So even though it is considered as the economic program, its objectives were political. The mercantilist policies were implemented by the nation state or nationalist monarchy. उसके elements क्या है? Simple है. The first is Bullionism. What is Bullionism? What is bullion? सोना चांदी. Simple. So it emphasized accumulation of bullion. The very basic idea was that जिसके पास अधिक सोना चांदी वो अधिक अमीर, अधिक powerful, अधिक prestigious. The strength of nation depends on the bullion it possesses. So what we want is bullion coming to India. Bullion was seen as the proxy for power and prestige. So वो अंदर आए बाहर ना जाए. Basic idea. We have it is actually a crude bullionism where a specific idea is specifically sona chandi. But if you go to the conceptual level, the essence level, it's not about bullion, it's about trade surplus. So the second aspect is balance of trade. All these nations focused on balance of trade fundamentally. It should be favorable to us. We should not run a deficit budget as a nation, not as a government, as a nation. Why? उस समय एक आइडिया थी जो now we know is an outdated idea. That idea is that you have at the entire global level a limited amount of trade, limited amount of money. दुनिया का पूरा पैसा जोड़ लो, सब कुछ जोड़ लो, तो एक static amount, दुनिया में 1 करोड़ रुपया है. Let us assume. So if माई बैलेंस ऑफ ट्रेड इज इंक्रीजिंग, मतलब मैं अमीर हो रहा हूँ, मतलब कोई तो गरीब हो रहा है, क्योंकि मनी इज लिमिटेड. बट इफ somebody else is going ahead of me, it means मैं गरीब हो रहा हूँ. So it was primarily based on what we call in the game theory as zero sum game, win lose. If you are winning, by default it means I am losing. तो हो गया competitive rivalry between nation states. So what you have is export को support करो, import को tax करो. So you have protective tariffs coming up. So it is actually the basis of economic nationalism, right? We know that this is a very faulty idea, win lose and limited global trade. The very beginning of capitalism is on the grave of mercantilism. एडम स्मिथ का पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट ही वो है that there can be win-win in global trade. Both of us can win. There is no win-lose. Therefore, Adam Smith wrote a book, Wealth of Nations, to destroy the foundation of mercantilism. लेकिन वो कब होगा? During Enlightenment. We are a few hundred years before that. इसमें क्या philosophy है? So the philosophy of early modern age is mercantilism, economic philosophy. The economic philosophy of the modern age is capitalism. The third point is self-reliance in the matter of production, state support to curtail the import. The same thing. So you have economic nationalism and protectionism coming up. And the fourth thing is colonialism. Started colonizing new areas to establish their control for more resources for the faster growth. So the idea that a colony is to be exploited, the resources of colony are to be exploited for the benefit of mother country. ये कहाँ से आती है? Mercantilism में. So the first colonies that were established, the Portuguese Empire, the Spanish Empire, these were mercantilist empire. But when the Dutch and English and French create their empire, they create capitalist empire. Difference in the nature of empire is different. So the way they organize the empire is different. उसके बाद we'll see that in detail when we go to capitalism and colonialism. But the idea is that colonies exist for the benefit of mother country. यही तो बात है जब यूपीएससी सवाल पूछती है कि अमेरिकन रिवॉल्यूशन was a struggle or a conflict between capitalism and mercantilism. पूछा यूपीएससी ने. So the English people are following in 1750s, 1770s the idea of mercantilism. इसीलिए various taxes come up. And the basis of tax is mercantilist idea. The colony should pay for itself and for us. But the British people के against खड़े हो रहे Americans who believe in capitalism. So it's a two different economic systems clashing. But that transition will happen in Enlightenment era and afterwards. अभी है mercantilism में. So active participation of the state in the trade expansion and the need to reduce the trade difficulties brought both the state and the merchant class together. State का interest क्या था इसमें? Taxes to become rich and powerful, so the monarchy is hijacking the revolution. Merchant का interest क्या था? Protectionism, support of the state, policies. Now mercantile class actually, you know, experienced both positive and negative consequences. राजा का फायदा ही फायदा है इसमें, उसको तो पैसा आ रहा है. So monarchy benefited by this association with mercantile community, but on the other hand, the mercantile community both benefited and lost out. How it benefited? Because of all this support it got. How it lost out? The king's intervention in economic policy increased. पहले तो राजा को फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता था. The mercantile community had all the freedom to do whatever trade they want without tax and without any intervention. Now, the king would impose upon them, for me to become rich, इस commodity को export करो. For me to become not rich, not rich, don't export this thing, produce this thing, not that. So, intervention of a state into market increased, which limited the freedom and individualism of mercantile community. So, this was a kind of association, alignment of interest, but somewhat थोड़ा सा गड़बड़ था शुरू से. The mercantile community was not entirely happy. It was feeling little constrained also. That is how gradually you see वो बोलते हैं राजा के अधिकार कम करो. Enlightenment is an ideology of middle class. I will keep repeating that point for next 4 lectures again and again. अब समझो उसको, ठीक है. Thus the mercantilism met economic expectations of the emerging nation state. It strengthened the economic base of nation state. It paved the way for colonialism also. This is the consequence. Is it clear? It's not difficult at all. This uneasy alliance between mercantilism and nationalism. Now you come to the next point and the final point. So alongside this commercial revolution and mercantilism, there was a rise of nation state and the absolutist autocratic monarchy. The emergence of the modern nation state was the result of some fundamental political economic developments in Europe from 15th to 17th century, that is early modern era. Again, the same points will come in a different way. The first point is decline of feudalism for economic and social and religious and other reasons. For example, the flow of silver gave birth to price revolution. Now we know that colonization of Latin America was done. In that, in Andes and everywhere, lots of silver was found out. This silver and gold was extracted with the help of local labor systems like Mita, and then that came to Europe. And why did Europeans want that much of gold and silver? Because they wanted to purchase Indian commodities, Chinese commodities. तो यहाँ से ले लो, यहाँ दे दो, यहाँ से ले लो, consume करो. Europe did not produce anything by itself. बस चोर चक्के pirates थे. Triangular trade is one example, yes, of that kind. But there are multiple triangles, not only this triangle, there are multiple triangles like that. So you have flow of silver gave birth to price revolution, but they did not know the concept of inflation at that time. Inflation होता क्या पता ही नहीं था. That idea had not existed by that point of time. So lots of silver और silver आने दो तो महंगाई बढ़ गई. This meant that the condition of the classes which were associated with commerce and trade improved. On the other hand, the economic and social condition of the aristocracy went through a blow because they did not have control over money economy. The land became freed from feudal control and transformed into marketable commodity. The capitalist class came into light, yeoman, farmer, etc. We've seen yeoman, farmer already. Then Renaissance hai and Reformation hai. Both of them gave blow to feudalistic ideas. So the emergence of a nation state is the decline of feudalism. ये fundamental idea. And how that happened? Because of all these economic, political, social reasons. Reformation, Renaissance, both of Renaissance controlled, weakened the manorial system, and Reformation weakened the Catholic system. So हो क्या रहा है इसमें? In this way, economic, political, and religious issues were all closely connected to each other. Any doubt online? No, sir. Now, the ambitious rulers of Europe took some concrete steps to strengthen their position. So, first of all, they are trying to hijack the commercial revolution. So, they support the mercantile policies to make the ends meet of the economic requirements of the nation state. And in that, they increase the trade and commerce. They tax more, earn more money. So, they gain the support of the newly emerging middle class against the feudal lords, because middle class also doesn't like feudal lords. Why? Because they are limiting the trade. They are putting local currencies, local restrictions, local laws. If we have a national monarchy, we have one single currency, one single set of laws to trade. हमें GST चाहिए, VAT नहीं चाहिए. That is emergence of nation state, national economic integration. Yes, we have to go against these feudal lords. Then they introduced, therefore the states introduced regular taxation. So taxation में फायदा दोनों का है. Middle class, the mercantile community gets simplified laws, less taxation, and the king also earns lots of money. But what does he do with that money? He ultimately starts direct centralized rule, and that is the crux of the emergence of national monarchies. In that direct centralized rule, you have, for example, beginning of a national army and professional bureaucracy. So this is a very important idea, that to reduce the power of the feudal lords, I have to serve all the functions parallelly. जो बादशाह अकबर क्या करता है? Akbar created a Suba administration. He controlled the power of local lords by appointing his own people. मनसबदार है, ठीक, जागीरदार है, but admin कौन करेगा? Government bureaucracy. आप बस आके पैसा लेके चले जाओ. You don't go there and work. It is our people. So you centralize power in your own hand. Once you have cash economy, Cash economy by default helps in centralization because you can pay cash salaries. You don't have to pay through land assignments. Land assignment के through आप pay करोगे मतलब आपकी power dilute हो गई. If you're paying out of the coffers in cash, every employee gets cash salary, cash payment through centralization of power because you can control everything. That is already happening over here. But apart from that, now government is in a constant struggle with these feudal lords. It is creating national bureaucracies, and it is a very important development. National bureaucracy, a very important development in case of emergence of nation state. What is bureaucracy? These are professional people like all you want to be, working for the government. You don't have your own opinion, you have all the skill sets required. So you are a very potent and strong instrument for the state to execute its will in the society, in politics, everywhere. You are professional. As Weber would call it, it's a legal rational authority. Right? Weber ने कहा है legal rational. आपका background है sociology में. You know this legal rational authority. अच्छा. So Weber would call it a legal rational authority. That it is a very effective form. It's a rational thing. You rationalize. So gradually, since 16th, 17th century, but ultimately in 18th and 19th century, this bureaucracy develops. Emergence of bureaucracy बहुत बड़ी चीज है. It is a modern phenomenon. Legal rational authority. Then the second important thing is effective and strong centralized military force. This is also new. For example, पहले क्या होता था? Feudal levies. आप 6 महीने किसानी करो, 6 महीने युद्ध के लिए जाओ, और you are mercenaries on hire, or you are knights like Knights Templars. अब वो जमाना चला गया. Now you are trained as a soldier, you get a salary, you serve in army. But who is paying you? It's the national government. And who is getting trained? Anybody can get trained. French Revolution is the first example in the world history where you have mass and compulsory conscription. जबरदस्ती आपको जबरन सेना में भर्ती होना पड़ेगा सबको. इतनी बिकॉज नेशन तो एट मैसिव स्केल रिक्रूटमेंट होना, मैसिव स्केल ट्रेनिंग देना, मैसिव स्केल पेमेंट देना, एंड मैसिव आर्मी, ग्रैंड आर्मी एज नेपोलियन वुड कॉल इट, क्रिएट करना. द प्रोसेस शुरू यहाँ पे होती है. इट्स अ बिग थिंग एंड इट कट्स द रूट्स ऑफ द पावर ऑफ फ्यूडल. तो फ्यूडल लॉर्ड्स पहले कौन थे, क्या करते थे? सब कुछ. वो भी आर्मी चलाते थे, वो प्रोडक्शन करते थे, टैक्स कलेक्ट करते थे. नो ऑल दैट पावर इज टेकन अवे by national monarch. But feudal lords still possess one. They have lost all their duties, but they still have the benefit, privileges. So that becomes the point of attack in French Revolution. French Revolution attacked privileges and not property. Property क्यों नहीं अटैक करती French Revolution? Because the people who are engineering the revolution are mercantile. खुद को प्रॉपर्टी उनके पास है, वो नहीं चाहते उसको एबोलिश करना. But what they don't want इज अनडिजर्व प्रिविलेजेस. काम करो पैसा मिले, बिना काम के पैसे क्यों मिले आपको? क्योंकि बस आप कोई पटेल हो, आप कोई चौधरी हो, आप कोई इनामदार हो, नहीं मिलेगा. इफ यू वर्क यू गेट कमेंसुरेट अमाउंट एज रिटर्न. बस खानदानी कुछ पोजीशन थी, काम तो खत्म. सो फ्यूडल लॉर्ड्स वेयर आउटडेटेड बिकॉज ऑफ द इमर्जेंस ऑफ एब्सोल्यूटिस्ट स्टेट, एंड दैट स्टेट इज इमर्जिंग नाउ. दिस इज द बेसिक आइडिया इन फ्रेंच रिवॉल्यूशन. ठीक है. So direct centralized rule, they formed a standing army and independent bureaucracy. But this centralized rule is created with the help of not only army and bureaucracy, also with the help of legal system. Now, you know, in Roman Empire, 1000 years before you go, initially you have Roman Republic, and then after Caesar, you have Roman Empire. Julius Caesar के बाद, you have Augustus and other people who come afterwards. Roman Empire had created legal codes of different code of Justine, for example. They were quite centralized. They gave authority to the monarchy. So those codes are brought back, and on the Roman legal system, you have the national monarchy getting buttressed. Roman legal system, there are two things: the importance of monarchy at the center of the government, and in the family, importance of father, pater family, karta. So you see, in the family system has to be stable. It can be remain stable only when father has all the authority over other members of family, legally, economically, socially, politically, everything. So that was the belief at that time. So with the rise of nation state, you also rise of पैटर फैमिली, लीगली ऑल्सो सारी प्रॉपर्टी फादर के नाम पे होगी. सो पैट्रियार्की बढ़ती है. इट्स अ नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट ऑफ दिस एरा, बट वी आर नॉट फोकसिंग ऑन दैट. स्लेव ट्रेड इंक्रीजेस इन कमर्शियल एरा, पर नॉट फोकसिंग ऑन दैट, क्योंकि हम यूरोसेंट्रिक हिस्ट्री पढ़ते हैं, है ना. एनीवे, so you have Roman legal system brought back to increase the power of the king. And another powerful tool of centralization was a promotion of cultural hegemony. And this is very interesting. For example, if people in my boundary follow same language, same culture, same viewpoint, I have homogeneous society, then I am stable. I feel secure. If you have diversity of religion and languages, देश के टुकड़े हो सकते हैं, दो देश बन सकते हैं. So all these emerging monarchies purposefully tried to create homogeneous society and culture. So it was their idea. For example, in 16th and 17th and 18th century, as England is emerging, England would implement English language as a compulsory language. If you go to Welsh, if you go to Scotland, वहाँ के भाषा इंग्लिश नहीं बोलते थे लोग, Celtic बोलते थे, Scottish बोलते थे, Welsh बोलते थे. But now you have to learn English. If you speak one language, you can remain united. It's a European mentality. One country, one nation, one language. India doesn't follow that. When French Revolution happened in 1789, we have some reports of census of something where we come to know that only 15% people in entire France spoke French. 15, that's all. 85% people spoke their regional languages or dialects. Afterwards, the French language is made compulsory and made important. Similar thing happened in England for previous 200 years, 16th to 17th century. English is gradually made important. How do we implement the language? Through system of education. So these European absolutist monarchs who are now becoming important are specially interested in education reforms. इंडिया में आज कितने परसेंट लोग हिंदी बोलते हैं? 40, 45, 50% people. So maybe that will increase in some time, who knows. If you go by a long duration of 400 years, 200 years, it might happen, like England and France, we don't know. It should not happen at one language increasing at the expense of other language, but who knows where we are going. That's a different story. In long duration of history, we can't see the things changing also. Lambe samay. But cultural homogeneity among the people of the state was something which was artificially promoted from the very top down. So this kind of nation state is not Indian idea. Then propaganda, even in the case of religion, now the English king will say, I have Anglican church, और सारे लोग Anglican Christian बनेंगे. We have the tussle in Catholicism and Anglican religion, even in the family of the king and queen. Elizabeth आती है शुरू में, she is a Catholic. Then Mary, above lots of problems happening there. But ultimately they establish religious uniformity also. Propaganda by the king and ideological support by scholars. The king starts saying for the state to emerge, state to become powerful, for you to get law and order and prosperity, मेरा powerful होना बहुत जरूरी है. For example, we have Louis XIV in France in the early part of the 18th century. He would say, I am the state. I am the state. So king would, as a divine personality, he would embody the state in itself. जितना राजा strong, उतना state strong. जितना state strong, उतने लोग peaceful and happy and prosperous. That was the equation at that time. Why? Because the powers who are acting against people are either church or feudal lords or other nations. उनके खिलाफ आपको कौन प्रोटेक्ट करेगा? मैं करूंगा. Then some contemporary thinkers like Hobbes, Grotius, Bodin, etc. also provided an ideological basis to the autocratic monarchy. So we have now thinkers coming up. For example, Hobbes. Hobbes के बारे में पूरी कहानी ऐसे कहते हैं. Hobbes was a staunch supporter of the strong state. He came with the word Leviathan. What is Leviathan? The strong bureaucracy. It's a sea monster actually. Monster है वो. Hegel क्या कहता है? You know, Hegel का एक बड़ा famous sentence है. The march, the bureaucracy and state is the march of God on earth. भगवान जब जमीन पे आता है तो क्या बनता है? Government. All of you want to become part of government. So it's a power. So all these things are happening at this point of time. You have, I was telling the story of Hobbes. Hobbes has supported through Leviathan and all these things a very strong state. because he is against the chaos, against the anarchy. ऐसे कहते हैं when he was in the womb of his mother, उस समय हो गई थी इंग्लिश सिविल वॉर, ग्लोरियस रेवोल्यूशन वगैरह, उस समय की वो 1650s या 1680s की बात है. आई डोंट रिमेंबर विच वन, आइदर सिविल वॉर और ग्लोरियस रेवोल्यूशन, बट देयर वाज लॉट्स ऑफ पॉलिटिकल अपहेवल up because of the weak monarchy, because of which her mother came into a lot of stress. And when Hobbes was born, he was also physically very weak. He also underwent lots of stress throughout his life, physical stress and problems and weakness. तो उसने जिम्मेदार किसको ठहराया? पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम के वीकनेस को, कि भाई लोगों की कितनी परिस्थिति खराब होती है जब गवर्नमेंट वीक है, सब chaotic है. तो थ्रू हिज आइडियाज ही कंटिन्यूसली सपोर्टेड स्ट्रॉन्ग गवर्नमेंट, स्ट्रॉन्ग, नो chaos. सेम थिंग इज कौटिल्य, राइट? राजा कालस्य कारणम, राजा स्ट्रांग होगा तभी काल अच्छा होगा आपका. सो दिस थिंग्स आर हैपनिंग एट दैट टाइम. ग्रेजुएट, सो माय फंडामेंटल आइडिया फॉर यू टू अंडरस्टैंड इज नेशन स्टेट is emerging not because of people. It is getting crafted from top down by kings and middle class. It is once the national boundaries are established, once the bureaucracy and army is created, once the entire government structure is established, once some amount of homogeneity is inducted in society, धीरे धीरे we have people asking for the stake in the government. हमारी भागीदारी कहाँ पे? So nation states gets created first, and then once it is created, our syllabus starts. Our syllabus is not about the creation of nation state. Our syllabus is about how that already created nation state in many cases, or sometimes in case of Germany, Italy जो बनाए जाते हैं, how they get democratized over time. How the power is shared, power flows from the king to the parliament, how the parliament gets democratized, middle class then lower class, एक ऐसे power flow होती है top to bottom. That is our syllabus of modern era. That is the philosophical crux of modern history. ठीक है कनिष्क, समझ में आ रहा है? Okay. So we have various thinkers supporting ideologically also. So we have some of the monarchs at that time: Henry VIII and Elizabeth in Britain, Louis XIV in France, Maria Theresa and Joseph I in Austria, Frederick William I and Frederick William the Great in Prussia, Peter the Great and Catherine the Great in Russia. We'll see some of them gradually when we see absolutist monarchy, but this thing is going to the creation of absolutist monarchy. Absolutist doesn't mean autocratic or authoritarian, because Raja power sab le raha hai. It doesn't mean the state actually has capacity to control society completely. उसके tools limited है, but जितने भी tool available है वो सारे उसके पास है. Yes, no, that's different. Catherine of Braganza वो अलग है, वो स्पेन पोर्तुगल वाली है. This Catherine is Russian. Then you have once nation state are created, उसकी प्रोसेस प्राइमरीली होती है from Treaty of Westphalia. Up Treaty of Westphalia is the very fundamental idea. What we have seen so far over entire last 2 hours maybe is how out of the 3 systems, हमने कल देखे थे 3 systems से medieval के, feudalism, universal church system and Holy Roman Empire. What we have seen is out of the 3, जब तीनों खत्म होंगे, then you have the emergence of nation state. So by so far we have demolished feudalism, we have demolished universal church system. What we have not demolished is Holy Roman Empire. That still exists. अब वो भी खत्म होगा through the 30 years war and Treaty of Westphalia. Then you come to know all the 3 elements of medievalism are destroyed and the modern era has begun. Let us see how this Holy Roman Empire gets destroyed. So at the global level, an important issue of the period was the competition between the Bourbon dynasty and Habsburg dynasty. Bourbon in France, Habsburg in Germany. This issue combined with some other issues and gave rise to the 30 Years' War. I am not going into the political history. It is very fascinating and very interesting, but it is not required. ठीक है, 30 Years' War completed the process that had begun with the geographical exploration and Reformation movement, it proved to be a great landmark in the history of Europe, as it is with the Treaty of Westphalia that the modern state system came into existence. So, at the legal level, at the diplomatic level, at the global level, you see these nation states are arising, and now they are creating system of coexistence. On what basis we shall coexist? So, causes of this 30 years war. It is interesting to know that 30 years war actually started as a conflict between Protestant and Catholics in Germany. The protest to Reformation का next level आता है 30 years war. Germany is now divided geographically into two parts, two halves. In one half we have Catholic people, in other half you have Protestant people. ये पता नहीं ये वेस्ट में लोगों को क्या खुजली है, क्या दिक्कत है, धर्म के नाम पे इतनी मारकाट मचाई है ना. आई हैव नॉट सीन दैट इन इंडियन हिस्ट्री. मतलब इन वेस्ट देयर इज सम प्रॉब्लम ऑफ सोशल सिस्टम, रिलीजन हैज बिकम एक्चुअली so much of a driving factor for people to kill, go on war purely, and it's a lot of, so the ideas that we imported from the West also come from that context, because in their idea religion is enemy. It has created those problems. In India it was not so. Anyway, then we have dynastic rivalry between Bourbon dynasty and Habsburg dynasty. It's a map, etc., but I don't need to explain the story. And division of European countries on religious lines and their involvement in this war. Therefore, the war took the form of all European war. It was a global war in that context. Now, the consequences in which we are primarily interested. Laptop thoda sa. So we are not interested in the course of war, but in the consequences of war. The first consequence is that it changed the very basis of the future battles. Although this war was fought with religious issues, the secular issues influenced the events from the beginning till the end. So these powers entered the war as either Protestant or Catholic, and they ended the war as nation states, as Germans, as French, etc. So at the fag end of the war, what emerged are nation states. What had entered are some feudal lords with some power with religious ideas. निकल के क्या आया उस तरफ से? नेशन स्टेट. युद्ध के बाद सेक्युलर इश्यूज के ऊपर, no more religious issues. So let us see what that got consolidated in the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. So we have to look at the treaty in detail. Although the war remained indecisive, the power and prestige of the Holy Roman Empire received a major blow. The Habsburg dynasty, it ended the political hegemony of the Holy Roman Empire. This resulted in the emergence of small German states. The first thing, the last of the three elements of medievalism are now gone. Holy Roman Empire still remains on paper. It is ultimately finished legally by Napoleon. But in 1648, it becomes a ghost. We have Rousseau saying, Holy Roman Empire is neither holy nor Roman nor empire. होली क्यों नहीं? क्योंकि इसमें अनहोली चीजें बहुत सारी. रोमन क्यों नहीं? बिकॉज इट्स इन जर्मनी एंड नॉट रोम एनी मोर. व्हाई इट इज नो मोर एम्पायर? बिकॉज देयर इज नो पावर विथ इट. इट जस्ट एग्जिस्ट लाइक दिस. नेशन स्टेट ने उसको अंदर से पूरा खा लिया है. एंड देन इट इज put to rest by Napoleon finally. But in 1648 it gets over as a power, as a prestige, and then many small German states emerge. That is one thing. So the era is gone. The importance lies of the treaty in the fact that it laid the foundation stone of the modern political system, defined geographical boundary. कौन से area में कौन काम करेगा. Now it is very interesting. It actually later on created lots of problems when the idea of the Westphalian state started to travel across Europe and across the world. For example, in one boundary, one ethnicity. If you have multiple ethnicities living together very closely, how can you have one boundary? You cannot. Look at what is happening in the northeast. Meitei issue, Manipur issue. अब हर ट्राइब के लिए, हर एथनिसिटी के लिए आप अलग स्टेट बनाओगे तो पॉसिबल ही नहीं है, क्योंकि इतना इंटरमिक्सिंग है. इट डजंट बिकम वायबल. यू हैव टू लर्न टू लिव टुगेदर. But in Europe it was not so, because ethnicity was similar over large area. तो वहाँ का एक नेशन बन सकता था. So within one boundary, one ethnicity, within one boundary, one language, one religion, one culture. It was possible. That is how they drew the national boundaries. When it went to, for example, Balkans by the end of 19th century, वहाँ भी ethnicity बहुत packed है. तो हर कम्युनिटी, हर ट्राइब, हर रेस, हर एथनिक पीपल कहेंगे हमें अपना देश चाहिए. कैसे मिलेगा? पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. बट व्हेन इट वाज क्रिएटेड in Treaty of Westphalia, it was viable for that region. One ethnicity, one country, one boundary. Anyway, irrespective of their size, the principle of equality of all states was accepted. Now, this is all something we take for granted, but it emerged in specific European socio-political context. So you have principle of equality. आप छोटे हो, बड़े हो, आप once it come to international diplomacy, you have equal value, equal status. Then each nation had the right to formulate its foreign policy, to join a bloc of nations and declare the war for its own benefit. So now you can do that. You don't have to talk to your feudal lords. You don't have to talk to the church not to do or do it. It's your right. Raja decide करेगा, government decide करेगा क्या करना है. Everybody can have his or her own foreign policy. Sovereignty की concept. The concept of sovereignty is coming. Now, next point is this treaty introduced the concept of international law for the first time and stated that all European states, regardless of their size and their power, were equal according to international law, and nation states had the right of full control over their people and their territory. So what is happening exactly? If inside your boundary whatever happens, it is your concern, I won't bother. मतलब आपके country के अंदर if there are 10% Catholics and I am a neighboring country with 90% Catholic people, if something happens with your Catholics in your country, it's none of my business. It's your people, you decide that. Only because I am a Catholic country, your Catholics within your country, मेरा कोई ताल्लुक है उससे, कुछ ताल्लुक नहीं. आप अपने लोग देख लो. That is nation state. But if some people say we are Catholic, we should not approach Catholic, वरना हम देखेंगे आपको. So it is not nation state. Nation state is territorial boundary. Whatever happens inside your boundary, if some government is suppressing its own people, the neighboring state is not supposed to intervene. उनका कोई लेना देना है नहीं. Nation state. Within boundary, your sovereignty. So that is changing even today gradually, but उस समय यह था. And then if it is outside nation state, you have, for example, Grotius. He drafted international law for the first time. Grotius actually wrote a book. He was a Dutch. Now there is a context of politics here. उसके पहले 200 साल में क्या हुआ था? French and Spanish people had created huge empires, and these people, for example, they had a policy that अगर हमने Indian Ocean capture किया है, तो it is mare clausum. It's a private lake. Indian Ocean में हमारी दादागिरी चलेगी तो ये हमारा. If any other nation has to send his ships into Indian Ocean, they have to take our permission. Right? So क्या बोलते थे वो पोर्तुगीज लोग? ब्लू वाटर पॉलिसी नहीं, एक शब्द था उसके लिए, कार्ताज सिस्टम. सो देयर इज, अब यूएन क्लॉज में क्या है आज के दिन में? फ्री रूट्स, फ्रीडम ऑफ नेविगेशन. बट इन मारे क्लॉजम इट वाज नॉट देयर. मारे क्लॉजम के समय the Portuguese and Spanish dominate the global trade, dominate the sea routes. अब Dutch and English are becoming as power. So they will say कि भाई oceans are not, cannot be owned by any single nation. They are supposed to be shared by everybody. So you have mare liberum. Mare liberum. So there is no sovereign control over ocean. हर नेशन को अपना अपना freedom of navigation है. क्यों? कि डचों को उस समय राइज होना है तो अपनी बात करेंगे. सेम थिंग हैपन आफ्टर वर्ल्ड वॉर टू. अमेरिका वुड से कॉलोनाइजेशन इज बैड. क्यों? नॉट बिकॉज दे थॉट इट इज बैड, बट बिकॉज फ्रेंच एंड ब्रिटिश अगर उनकी कॉलोनीज फ्री हो जाएंगी तो हमारा ताल्लुक बढ़ेगा, हमें फायदा होगा. एट दैट टाइम ऑल्सो डच आर सेइंग, बट दे टॉक अबाउट दिस, इट विल बी गवर्न्ड बाय global laws, by international laws. So you see, international law, how the nations are supposed to correlate with each other on some basic commonly agreed principles, that is emerging. So you have international systems, international laws coming up. It was the first European Congress, and in the sense it was also the precursor to the Congress of Vienna and Paris Peace Conference that will come in 19th and 20th century. We'll see later, 1815 and 1919. Then the next thing is the concept of balance of power. It is also very interesting and very important. It emerges for the first time at this. It came into existence. It created European order. What is balance of power? It started to guide the relationship between European nations. Now, if we are all nation states, or we have freedom of having our own foreign policy, हम क्या चाहेंगे? हम में से कोई एक बहुत आगे ना चला जाए. अगर कोई आगे चला जाए सबकी फट जाएगी. Right? So what do we do? If anybody starts becoming powerful, बाकी सब इकट्ठा आएंगे, उसके साथ युद्ध करेंगे. So if France becomes powerful, British would come to the continent and create coalition alliances of all their countries. इनको खत्म करो. Germany should not get united. If all the German states get united, it will become too powerful. Then the balance of power will get destabilized. Balance of power means against the more powerful state, all the weaker would come together and defeat it, so that nobody is more powerful. So balance of power inherently is unstable system, is inherently leading to wars and battles again and again. And in every era, after every 40, 50, 60 years, somebody starts to become powerful, so alliances change होते रहते हैं. British always played a very strong role in maintaining balance. British always wanted, British to एक island है, so they always wanted कि in the continent nobody should emerge very powerful. If French are emerging powerful, अंग्रेज जाके सबको बोलेंगे देखो आपको हरास करेंगे, तो उनको दबाते हैं. If Germany does that, British would again go to continent, let us create alliance against Germany. British would for centuries not allow any continental power to rise by creating anti-coalitions. Balance of power. Balance of power का shape जो है is changed from 17th century to 18th century to 19th to 20th century. It goes on, but the idea primarily in some way continues to exist. This concept was based on that of a nation state with a clear geographical boundary and fully sovereign status. In a sense, even the First World War and the Second World War were fought to maintain a balance of power. After the Second World War and decolonization, Westphalian system has now expanded to Afro-Asian regions as well. हम भी सब nation state बन रहे हैं. Right? Now we have 200 nations in the world. So thus the process of the rise of modern West was completed by the end of the 17th century. Is it clear? Any doubt? Think it was very easy. It was very basic, and we have covered the early modern Europe rise. We have covered all the 6-7 things. Now I think you have got a basic idea. ये आप नहीं समझते, आपको enlightenment समझ में नहीं आती. I think you will agree with that. Had you read all these things before? नहीं, आपने सारा पढ़ा हुआ है. Now we will sometimes invite her also on stage, right? आपको प्रोजेक्ट बेस्ड असाइनमेंट देंगे. अरे just wait for some days and see. तो उतने लोग होते हैं क्लास में, और कितने होते हैं? नहीं, it has nothing to do with new batch. तो old people insisted. आप अच्छा आप ही लोग नहीं है, वो 2-4 लोग आए थे. Let us see. We'll take a call after. Let us see. We'll take a call. ठीक है. So any doubt? Rutuja, Sudeep, Sampath, Gudavalli, ने परिमला. ठीक है. No doubt. Let us stop then. We'll begin next week. From tomorrow, I think we have Vishal sir's lecture that will continue. I will come back on Monday, and then we'll start with our actual syllabus, enlightenment. ठीक है. चलो. Thank you.